Hello there, Persephone17 once again. This is my God of War, Chains of Olympus, pain plus no damage run. This is the final boss, and it is of course Trist from Valkyrie Profile. Oh wait, no it's not, it's Persephone, and she has like 3 moves. And I'm going to be fighting her for the next 10 minutes, so get comfortable because this is garbage. And I say this is garbage, I actually really like the first phase. I think if you reduced her life by about 2000%, I would have really liked this fight. But the idea here, guys, is we're going to use nothing but movement to manipulate her. I really like the movement you can do to this boss. So you do square triangle, then you move around her, she does her attacks, and then you can do some attacks afterwards. And she repeats this, and it's a manipulation that works consistently. And every so often, depending on your positioning and depending on how aggressive you are, she will then try to fly at you because you dropped the loop, or this kind of manipulation. And when she does that, you can either parry it if you're parrying, or you can evade it. And if you get close enough to her, and if you do this correctly, you can do this repeatedly. There's two ways to make this boss your bitch. One of them is what I'm doing here with square triangle, and this is the second one. So you can actually do plumes here. And it's after this. If you don't hit the squares on the plume, you will loop her with plumes instead and do the big hit at the end. But if you hit the squares, she likes to interrupt you with the punch. So if you watch, see how she's jumping away here? You can get this repeatedly. I think I'm going to do it later on because this is a really long fight. So right there, see that? That's the first one, right? That square triangle, she moves away. I think this one is square triangle again. I'm going to do like a combination of both, and this is it. Boom, right there. See that? If you don't hit the 2 squares, she doesn't punch you. It's all about those 2 light attacks. So depending on what you want to press here will depend on what ends up happening. But if you give her too much room, she will dive bomb at you. I like the square triangle more than the plume one. But either of them work, and it all depends on what you prefer, because the only real risk in this fight is like being bored / getting complacent, because you do it for so long. But I think that this is kind of cool, being able to just do this. Because most people here spam roll, or they parry a lot. Whereas movement is so strong. And when she flies at you, if you get out of this particular loop, you can double jump the fly she does. She's going to get really mad there because she dropped all the orbs. She might fly here. She has a tendency to want to fly when you get those like weird transitional orb moments. And apparently there's a bug on the game where the music doesn't play on this fight sometimes. I watched a retrospective on this game and he critiqued this fight for having no music. But this fight has music, so I don't know what was happening on his game. Maybe that's the PS3 version? I don't know. Oh, here it is, guys. This is it. The 2 hits into the plume. See this? This is also a repeatable pattern that you can do, which is pretty good. So if you don't like the square triangle and chasing her around with the rock slams, you can do this. The problem is, look at her... Oh, and then that's why this is bad. Just then. So... that right there was not meant to be a parry, guys. It was meant to be a roll, but I got the parry because I was heavy on the block instead of both buttons. So you'll have to forgive me for doing that parry. It was not intentional. But the problem with doing the square triangle and landing the plumes is every so often she flies. And when she flies, it's one of the hardest moves to dodge when you're not parrying. So if you want to go safe, just do square triangle, and she almost never breaks out of it. But I wanted to show this because it's really good damage all considered. It's not as good damage as if you were parrying, because then you can do full combos into the Spirit of Hercules, and then that's the best damage you can do. But as far as completely controlling the fight and knowing what she's going to do, this movement is... like, once you watch this for about a minute, you know exactly what you're doing. And then once you do it yourself, you realise just how easy it is to get her to do this. And the only threat of losing this pattern is when the camera dynamically shifts a little bit. If you're too close to this punch that she does there after the dash, I've been hit by that punch a few times because it's got a pretty big hitbox. There's the roll. Be careful. And she usually kicks after the roll, but sometimes she does it twice. And right now, we're in a bad pattern because this is an unfavourable place. But as long as you end up after the roll close to her, she goes back into the normal move. So this is her just wasting time. I need to roll with her here. This is the thing there it is, she did the move. But usually if you roll with her dash, you can be really close to her and you tend to get her to kick the rock. But right now she's just doing what she wants. This is completely unideal and it's wasting time. But if you don't like wasting time, guys, don't fight this fight. Because it's complete dog shit. But we're back in it now. I'm going to do some square triangles because I want her to keep dashing away. And then right there, that was an input error. I did not want that. If you accidentally get the additional part of that combo, it leads to potentially getting hit. And again, guys, if you just want to do this fight without getting hit, it isn't that bad. It's still incredibly long and incredibly tedious, but it's the hits that are the worst. And the first phase is long and kind of shit and boring, but finding your path through this fight is quite fun. There's no excuse for this to last 10 minutes though, and admittedly, I know I'm not doing optimized damage. I know I could be doing better damage if I was parrying, but like, how do you do any more damage than what I'm really doing if you do it this way? Like, she shouldn't have this much life. That's the be-all and end-all of this whole situation. It's just unacceptable if you ask me. Challenge run or no challenge run? If this was my game and I saw this, I would be heartbroken. Like, I would do an emergency patch 10 years later, just so that I can give you like a fucking amulet of the gods that increases your damage against Persephone and Charon or something, you know? Because it's like, who wants to do this? Because I wouldn't change much, you know, if I could balance this game, if I could do like a pain/no upgrade balance, I really wouldn't change that much. I think most of the game works in a phenomenal way. It's just every so often you hit these walls, like Cyclops' fucking HP pools, and the bloody Morpheus beasts HP pools, and like some of the shenanigans with the physics that happens on emulator. That's not the game's fault, that's just technology. But we've now been doing this for a handful of minutes, and it was probably quite cool to watch, wasn't it, when I was first showing you these different things you can do, but now you've been watching it this long, it's like, what is there to this? All she does is kick rocks and try to punch you. And all I'm doing is like circling her. It's weird that they thought that this was enough. And I feel like in this period of gaming, it seems like giving an enemy a ton of HP is the way to make it difficult, right? And I was on YouTube after I recorded this because I was in such a bad mood. And I watched Taz do it, and his video is amazing. Like, the patience he must have had to do it the way he did it, I don't have that. I don't get that. That guy is, you know, he was the Shinobia after Shinobia. Came along, did great things, really, really cool videos, and then I think he's just moved on now. He's not been around for ages. But I watched a few other people fight it, and I saw one, right? I saw one, it was no upgrades, no damage, no magic. And the Persephone fight was, I think, 6 minutes. And I was like, how the fuck did you do it in 6 minutes? What is going on? And I clicked on it, and of course, I didn't realize that they weren't doing pain. So he's using the Fist of Zeus, and it's really, really, really high damage. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Because believe it or not, guys, if I was using the other weapon in this game, every time I was hitting her, I'd be taking off the equivalent of like a proper plume. It takes off a big chunk every time you smack her, and it just makes the fight so much more bearable. And I would recommend, if you want to enjoy this game the most, I would do like Pain Plus on all the fights, and then on like the fights where you think the HP's kind of bullshit, use the Zeus Gauntlet, and it will just make it a lot more enjoyable. But I suppose they call it Pain for a reason. And I don't know what that reason is because I've never been able to find it all the time I've scoured on GameFAQs over the last 10 years. You know, there's only so many, you know, Mr. Starkiller and like SBK threads you can read before you'd think you'd find the answer to that question, but you seemingly never do. And then when somebody asks what it is, you find threads of people explaining it, and, you know, at this point it's so rich and so varied that it seems like, you know, God of War 1 is only Pain because they couldn't find enough restrictions to give it Pain Plus, and Pain Plus is exclusive to the games that followed it, where they took away even more of your abilities. But if anybody does know the actual like lore of that, the whole story, the fiction of that challenge run and where it comes from, and the exact precise like category of what it's supposed to be, I'd love you to share it, because I am curious. Like, I have a lot of questions for God of War, and I don't have a lot of answers. And I think that gives me a unique position because I'm trying to find the answers myself by just playing. but this is nuts. What a nuts fight. Can you imagine as well, if she only had like half this HP, I would be at the end of the fight coming up here and I would have won. And if that was the end of the game, I wouldn't have really had too much of an issue because I like this particular combat strategy I'm doing. It feels like me, you know, it feels like how I approach games and it works, which is cool. Like this is essentially a no-roll mindset on God of War, which I didn't even know you could do, and I'm really happy about that, but that second phase, man. Oh my god. What were they thinking? I don't have an answer. I don't. And the worst part is they give you checkpoints, which is like almost insult to injury, isn't it? Like, so many fights in these games don't give you checkpoints, and they give you a checkpoint for that one just so you can realize how bad it is. Like, you know a fight's bad when you don't want to do it when they give you a checkpoint. But it's just weird, isn't it? I suppose you could do a drinking game here, guys. Every time, you know, Persephone does, like, a certain move, and this is it. This is a mandatory grab now. So this is kind of shit, too. So they throw you away here, and she steals your life and your magic. Which is just dumb. Mandatory damage for the second time of this campaign. And it's not a big deal because this boss pumps out HP orbs like bloody candy. Because I feel like the game was designed for you to take a bit of damage and heal up and take a bit of damage and heal up. And I feel like that was the God of War way, wasn't it? Like, there's some moves on even Titan when you get hit where they do no damage to you and it's really fucking weird. Like, the damage threshold in God of War has always been weird. Some things kill you instantly. Like, I think this boss kills you in one hit sometimes. But anyhow, this is the second phase, guys, and this is the bit I'm not going to talk over because it's shit. I segmented this fight about 12 times. Full disclosure, I hate this. I think it's total dog shit. It's boring, it's long, and it's lame. And all you really do is you stand here holding block, or if you're good enough at spacing, you don't need to, but I wasn't good enough. And then when she fires a ball, you jump and you whack her with triangle, and if she does the laser, you iframe roll into it and then roll back, and this is all you do. You do this for 20 minutes. And it's dog shit. And then later on, she's going to add a move to this, where she starts putting stuff on the ground and it becomes even harder to get opportunities to hit her, and then sometimes it gets easier because you can do some other things. But I couldn't come up with an interesting way of doing this at all. Like, I thought maybe if you stood on that circle you could do something with reflecting or some kind of, like, I don't know, bloody Perseus technology. I didn't know what was going on, but there doesn't seem to be a way to hit her other than with a couple of jumping Ys and occasionally with the Spirit of Hercules. There doesn't seem to be any kind of AI manipulation. I just don't understand. The only thing I like about this is it plays God of War music. This music right now, I think this is the song that plays when you fight Ares, and it's one of my favourite songs in the series. If it weren't for this music, I don't even think I would have been able to stomach this, and that's with segmenting it. It's that bad. Like, this is... I have no idea how people do this. Like, massive shout-outs to everybody who's done this. And here's the kicker as well. I've got to say this because you'll probably go looking. If you parry the projectile back at her, this fight's way easier. And it's way quicker too. But I just don't think you should have to. I think they should have made a good fight instead of making a basic fight that predicates one mechanic I'm not using. And it's really annoying too, because every so often you knock her off. And when you knock her off, you can beat her up. Why don't you do like 10 times damage when you knock her down? Like, why isn't it that you can't knock her down a ton? Like, I wouldn't mind this if I could jump and hit her like 3 to 5 times and I knocked her down like this. Because when you do this, you can do a full combo here. And hit her with the ender there. And that's like the most damage you can do if you do Spirit of Hercules. But that's it. That's how far she's down for. Like, why wasn't that a grab? Why can't you grab her? Why can't you do like a massive chunk of damage from grabbing her and smashing her head into the pillars or something? Like, this needed more development because it's shit. It's really bad. And I have held my tongue for most of this playthrough as much as I can, guys, because I didn't want to like sour the playthrough, even though it's technically a challenge run, with how much I don't like this. And I wouldn't blame you if you turn it off when I stop talking, guys. I'd do the same. It's garbage. It's just not good. It just makes me mad watching it too. I'm never fighting this boss ever again, you know? And this is not a legitimate fight. I would not put this down on a list of I've beat Persephone. This is not a real fight. It's a fake fight. It's garbage, you know? And I'm cool with that because this is not for me. Not for me at all. And it's really funny because before I did this, I was thinking about if I do this, I'm going to have to do God of War 1 and I'm going to have to fight Ares for like 20 minutes. Because I know at the end Ares is a nightmare. But I fought him on stream the other day, and I noticed that you can kind of manipulate Ares in some interesting ways. And the only thing I had problem with his hammer, because his hammer's unblockable and it's quite quick. But if I use Blade of Artemis to iframes through the hammer, I don't think Ares has anything I can't deal with, because I can get him to keep trying to stab me, and I'll just keep doing square triangle to him. I'll just keep doing that, blocking, and then if he kind of gets a bit fucky, I'll try and grab him, because apparently if you try and grab him, it makes him even more aggressive. Because his counters seem to be programmed. And I think if I do that, I might be able to get Ares into a bit of a loop, and if I turn my brain off, I might be able to do it. But I can't do this, guys. I'm not good at this, like, lengthy bullshit. It's the antithesis of what I'm good at. But this is the final phase now here, guys. She's going to do the projectiles at you, and she's going to do this squat where there's this thing on the ground, and again, it goes where you're moving towards. It's the same as the projectile that the Basilisk had. It's the same as the bombs that the Grenadier Satyrs had. If you walk forward and like pivot as it's about to happen, you never run into it really. But she just has too much HP. And that's where I'm going to leave it, guys. This is the end of my God of War Chains of Olympus Pain Plus no damage run. This fight, as I've mentioned, guys, is absolutely segmented into oblivion because I just fucking hated it. But I'm okay with that because I really enjoyed everything up to this point. You know, except for Karen's HP bar and some of the Cyclops' HP bars. But other than that, I had a good time. I hope you enjoyed watching it. And if you continue to watch the rest of this, you are a stronger man than I am. And if you've done this under these restrictions, you are a god. And you should absolutely leave a comment about what you thought, because I just don't get it. I don't understand the design, I don't understand any of it, and I will see you in whatever we do next with God of War. So thank you for watching, thank you for the support, and you take care now.
human.